Philippe Lazzarini, Komisaris Jenderal UNRWA yang akan meninggalkan jabatannya, menyatakan rasa keterkejutannya atas keputusan Israel untuk mengembalikan hukuman mati bagi Palestina di Tepi Barat. Lazzarini menganggap undang-undang ini sangat diskriminatif dan berharap dapat dibatalkan oleh pengadilan tinggi. Selain itu, Lazzarini juga mengecam kampanye disinformasi yang terus-menerus menyerang UNRWA yang bertujuan untuk melemahkan perjuangan Palestina dan merusak dukungan internasional.
Hundreds of UNRWA premises in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. Israeli authorities are also increasingly pressuring UN entities to stop working with the agency. You also know that the Parliament of Israel has adopted legislation to end the agency's presence in occupied East Jerusalem. Armed police forcibly shut our school and health facilities, and local authorities cut electricity and water to all premises. The UNRWA headquarters in Sharjah was seized, looted, and set on fire, with senior Israeli officials celebrating the destruction in widely published video footage. We even had a deputy mayor of Jerusalem who called for UNRWA personnel to be annihilated. These attacks are unprecedented in the 8 years history of the United Nations. They violate international law, as recognized by the International Court of Justice, and erode the United Nations Charter. A well-orchestrated disinformation campaign continues. It alleges agency-wide neutrality breaches and asserts that our operations have been replaced in Gaza, where UNRWA remains, as of today, a major provider of primary health care, education, clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. The purpose of these unsubstantiated and malicious claims is to justify actions against UNRWA and to undermine member states' support. We are now seeing similar claims being made against other UN entities and international NGOs assisting Palestinians in Gaza. I cannot stress enough that the attacks against UNRWA are not about neutrality or operationality. Rather, they seek to undermine the agency to weaken Palestinians' right within final status issues in the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let me explain. UNRWA does not have a political mandate, but it is intrinsic to protecting Palestinian rights in final status determination through its direct provision of public-like services and through its registration of refugees and archives documenting their historical displacement. In April 2025, to help member states to respond to UNRWA's challenges, the Secretary General commissioned a strategic assessment. It concluded that UNRWA is key to regional peace and security, but faces collapse. The assessment urged member states to reinforce support to UNRWA's operation or to support a transition for the provision of its essential public-like services. Despite the Secretary General appeal for urgent action, there have been no follow-up. In November 2025, at the General Assembly Force Committee meeting on renewing UNRWA's mandate, I underlined that it would be insufficient to extend the mandate without also providing adequate political and financial support. On December 5th, 2025, last December, the mandate, as you know, was renewed for 3 years, but UNRWA's situation has only worsened since then. Since 2019, the agency operates with a negative cash flow following years of chronic underfunding. The suspension of funding in 2024 by two major donors, including the agency's largest contributor, left a gaping hole in our finances. This dire financial situation was compounded by a 90% drop in funding provided by Arab states between 2024 and 2025. Significant austerity measures implemented last year have not been enough to address the cash flow shortfalls. And it pains me because I have been compelled to reduce service delivery hours and therefore salaries for most of our local staff by 20%. And without significant new funding, additional painful measures will be required this year. Today, UNRWA remains the largest, best established, most cost-effective UN humanitarian and development presence in the region. I have urged member states to leverage UNRWA's workforce and expertise in Gaza as key asset for the successful implementation of Security Council Resolution 2803. A disorderly collapse of the agency would fuel insecurity, placing the full responsibility for delivering services to Palestinian refugees in the OPT on Israel as the occupying power, and place an enormous burden on Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan as host countries. So, reflecting on the past 2.5 years, I'm appalled that despite UNRWA's crucial role, the agency has not been adequately protected by the international community. The abject failure to muster an effective multilateral and international law-based response to the war in Gaza has set the stage for a war outside the bounds of international law that is now spreading across and beyond the Middle East. It has normalized disdain for the rules-based international order. The attack on United Nations personnel and premises in the OPT must not go unanswered. We cannot allow impunity to further undermine the United Nations and the future of multilateral action. The question member states must answer are clear, and which I will raise again today. Are they going to stand up for a just political solution for the OPT and for Palestinian refugees? Are they going to stand up for international law as called for by the International Court of Justice? Are they going to stand up for the United Nations, including for UNRWA? UNRWA and the wider United Nations system can do a lot and have done a lot, but we need the support of member states if we are to succeed. If member states cannot find a consensus for collective action, the consequences will be catastrophic for a generation or more.
And I was wondering, first, the Israeli parliament yesterday approved a bill allowing for the execution of Palestinians specifically in the West Bank who are convicted of terror charges for deadly attacks. So I'm wondering, how you see that, your reaction to that, and how you see that in the broader context. And you're mentioning the possible collapse of UNRWA. I'm wondering how quickly you think that could actually happen if there isn't a swift reaction. Thank you.
You know, the first part of the question, of course, like many others, have been absolutely appalled by this abject law, which I really hope will be rejected by the Supreme Court. I think I'm not aware of democratic countries reinstating death penalty. We are more used to having countries abolishing death penalties. And on top of that, this would be an extraordinary discriminatory law because it would basically target only one category of the population. On your second question, it all depends on, I think, how fast will be the implementation of the peace plan when it comes to Gaza. We have seen that, entering into stage 2 has been stalled over the last few weeks. Thank you. Why stage 2 is taking so long, I don't know. Why is the Palestinian community, which has been designated 2 months ago, is still not in Gaza? I don't know. This, for the time being, what we know is that very little has been implemented so far when it comes to issues related to rule and order, security, deployment of supervisory forces. But what does it mean for the people in Gaza? I mean, more misery, no doubt about this. We talk about a ceasefire, which seems to be a ceasefire by name. More than 650 people have been killed. There are daily security incidents. People are still living in the rubble. In Gaza, they are still queuing hours every day to have access to proper clean water. There is very little prospect to rejoice in Gaza today. So it remains extremely grim, and the more the implementation of the next stage will be stalled, the more desperate people in Gaza will be. We should also never forget that Gaza was already overcrowded before, and today the entire population is kept in half Gaza Strip. We have this new yellow line, which, is supposed to be a temporary, but as we know in the region, whatever starts temporary has a tendency to last, and question is, how long will it last? When it comes to the second question, there haven't been yet, there have been discussion about a memorial, but it has not yet taken shape per se. There have been quite a number of discussions also about putting in place a fact-finding, a high-level fact-finding committee to identify what happened and responsibilities, because we are talking about an extraordinary high number of staff having been killed, and we are talking about an extraordinary high percentage of premises having been damaged and completely destroyed in Gaza.
I think that is why has it been possible for the international community to let a UN agency be attacked in the way it has been? And do you think that this has laid the groundwork, or do you see any connection with the impunity, perhaps, that we're seeing now in the broader Middle East? Thank you.
Just to start with the latter, yes, I do believe that there is no Gaza exception, and the extraordinary level of impunity that we have tolerated in the context of Gaza now is spreading. First we had UNRWA being attacked, then we had other UN agencies, then we had other INGOs. Then when we kill health workers or journalists, they are always labeled being Hamas. Today they are labeled being Hezbollah in Lebanon. So each time we accepted the fact that there is a justification or a license to kill. In Gaza, we have seen unfolding for 2 years atrocities to the extent that it has given the feeling that this war had no rules. All possible red lines have been crossed, and there have never ever been any consequence, whether diplomatic, political, economic, legal, nothing. So we have even seen openly, soldiers taking selfies and destroying UN premises or humiliating civilian with total joy and circulating in the social media, and it has never really triggered any proper reaction. Yes, we had a lot of indignation. I think symbolically also what happened at the headquarters in Sharjah in East Jerusalem is extraordinarily outrageous. You have a member of the government, member of the parliament, storming a United Nations compound, enjoying all the privilege immunities of a diplomatic mission or of the United Nations, and they are just jubilating in front of the camera and even disputing who should take credit of this blatant violation. And all this has only triggered some words of condemnation, nothing else. But it is also a context where we are used to that. But if we accept it today with UNRWA, there is no reason why another UN agency will not be targeted at a given time or in other diplomatic mission, whether in East Jerusalem or elsewhere. So yes, there is quite a lot of disappointment vis-à-vis this inaction or passivity. Why so? Possibly because it is one of the most divisive, polarizing contexts. We have seen that the horrible massacre of October 7 have not only traumatized Israel but reverberated in Europe and across the world, and the conflict also, and the response also has reverberated the same way. But wherever we go, we have the feeling that governments somehow are also paralyzed because of the division of their own, I would say, domestic constituencies. That's the only explanation I can give, but also maybe an absence of proper courage and leadership might also explain this.
Maybe the answer is short. Did you have any contact with leaders of the so-called peace of board to see what is you said before, what is the role of UNRWA in the context that they imagine?
It all depends on what you have in mind when we talk about the Board of Peace. Yes, we are in contact with a number of its members, since we have a number of countries having joined the Board of Peace, and many countries are from the region, so we are constantly, in fact, in contact with them. And we have also the technical committee, the Palestinian technical committee, which has been put in place in Cairo, with whom we are also in regular contact. Do we have contact with every level? Not really. But we have ways to engage with a member of the Board of Peace.
Jelajahi cara baru mendapatkan informasi. Download MetroTV Extend sekarang.